The following program was produced by an independent community producer. The opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of the ECAT staff or board of directors.
What you forgot? Oh, we haunt those same city sidewalks, but you're the ghost rider of this block. Good evening and welcome to For the Love of Words, October 2023 edition, and this is the poetry segment. And with us tonight, we have the poet Mark Walsh. Mark is an English professor at Massasoit Community College in Brockton, where he teaches literature and philosophy. Through Massasoit Television, he created Writers at Work and a new show, Out of the Marvelous, focusing on poets and poetry in southeastern Massachusetts. In 2023, he also started a monthly poetry radio show, Into the Marvelous, for the Talking Information Center. Since the mid-1990s, he has helped organize and host poetry readings in Plymouth and Brockton. In 2022, he was the head judge of the selection team for the City of Brockton's first ever Youth Poet Laureate. His journalism and reviews have appeared in the South Shore News and the Marshfield Mariner, Solstice, and the Lily Poetry Review. His latest poetry publications include the Lily Poetry Review, Wilderness House Literary Review, The Beatnik Cowboy, and Abandoned Mine. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you, John. It's good to be here.
So, as I usually do with poets for the benefit of the audience, most of the people in the audience, our audience, want to know how the poets first become connected to poetry. So what was your first direct connection with poetry?
Well, my first connection with poetry was music, and specifically song lyrics. And when I started to actually write poetry when I was 14, 15 years old, I didn't call it poetry, I called it song lyrics. So I was listening to, the lyrics from bands like The Clash, and Joe Strummer was very important to me, as was Bob Dylan. And so they really taught me a lot about how to put words together.
Okay. But at some point, you must have begun reading formal poetry.
Oh, yeah.
And so who were the poets that influenced you from that perspective?
So when I was very young, I had poetry literally thrust upon me by my father, who, when we were driving and we would be stuck in traffic somewhere, he would start to recite Robert Service poems, the cremation of Sam McGee and all of that. And so he loved poetry, and he loved Alexander Pope, and he loved to quote poetry. So it's really through him that I slowly started to read it and get more immersed in it, high school into college. So, okay. But it's really my dad.
And who would you say are the poets that influenced your writing?
The poets that influenced my writing, I would say, there's a Seamus Heaney, I think was big. I want to borrow an old joke from Orson Welles and say, well, I studied the masters, and by the masters I mean Gary Snyder, and Gary Snyder. So I mean, Gary Snyder is iconic for me. Richard Hugo is really important, as was Charles Bukowski. I mean, I loved the beat poets growing up. And again, I think just because I thought they were so free with their language, and that was something I think that's a great intro into writing poetry. You have a sense of play and freedom with it, and then you start to really examine what you're doing.
Okay. So not that you omitted them intentionally.
Yes.
But Allen Ginsberg and Lawrence Ferlinghetti, were they part of the poets that you read?
I did read Ginsberg a bit, but I never really fully got on the Ginsberg wagon. I do like Ferlinghetti. I think he's just very freestyling, and I enjoy that. But I kind of liked Corso. I really dug him. Mm-hmm. So I had a kind of a dalliance with Ginsberg, but more Ferlinghetti, more Corso, but it all brought me really to Gary Snyder. That's the thing I really am grateful for the beats for.
Okay. Your own poetry.
Yeah.
How would you describe it in the sense of form or genre?
So I am about as far away from writing epic poetry or long poetry as you can get. I mean, my poetry tends to be really short. I like uh, uh, I like the challenge of distilling it all down to 20 lines, maybe 14 lines. Um, and I would say that the I don't think I kind of write one set theme, or I have that obsession that I keep coming back to in poems. I can write some poems that are kind of philosophical. Then I can write poems that kind of are influenced by more Eastern, Cold Mountain, or even some haiku poetry. So I kind of tend to wander. I'm a dabbler. I like to sort of go over here for a little bit, then come back over there.
Is there any particular project that you're working on right now in your work?
Yeah. Right now I have just completed a manuscript that I am in the process of shopping around, and fingers crossed I'll get some traction with that. It's a chapbook of very short poems that I was working on over the pandemic when we were all locked down, and it was based on a prompt that I was entertaining myself with as kind of a pre-writing exercise when I was working on the other poems, where I would have a whole collection of fortune cookie fortunes in an envelope, and I would just kind of write a line and then go into the envelope and pull out the fortune and write that down and sort of just kind of see where that took me. And it was a fun exercise, but over time, it's kind of taken on a life of its own. And so it came up to a short manuscript, and I'm hoping something will happen with that.
Thematically, what would you say runs through that collection of poems in the chapbook?
I think hope runs through that collection, and I think one of the things that's happening in that collection is the thing that I'm always grateful for with the artists, the poets that I read, and the musicians that I listen to, is that all of them collectively have helped to lighten my load. So I had that in mind when I was writing it. The poems are kind of humorous, or I hope they're humorous. I hope people will find them funny, but funny in a way that's surprising, and just to bring a little bit of light into just an ordinary day. That's I would say the what they're all kind of working together to do.
Do you have a working title for the manuscript yet?
Right now, it's called Found Fortunes, but that's not set in stone.
Right.
So we'll see what happens
Right.
with that. Yeah.
Now, in looking through your bio, I noticed that you created or produced or founded,
Right.
all three,
Yeah.
both a television show and a radio show.
Right. Yep.
So how did all that come to pass?
Well, the TV show came to pass because we have a very energetic director of the TV studio at Massasoit, a really lovely guy named Ed Krasnow, who has always been on me to do a TV show. It's like, you got to do a TV show. We got to set something up. And so I thought about it, and I said, well, what would I do? And I always liked the format that we're in right here. I always liked this Charlie Rose format, to just sit down and talk to someone and have an interesting conversation. I said, well, I can do that. And I said, why don't I do that with writers, And so that's where the first show started. And then during the pandemic, again, Ed, they got new equipment, new vision and focus in the TV studio. And so he was approaching me again. And then so I had an idea. I said, well, why don't I do a poetry show? Because that's really where I'm at right now. So, but why don't I keep the focus on poets in Southeastern Mass, and just sort of like what's happening here in Southeastern Mass? What's the scene or the series of scenes like? Where's poetry happening? And so I've done a couple of those episodes. Hopefully I'll do more. I'm a bit busy right now, so that might be laying dormant for a while, but I hope to pick it up again.
So how many episodes of Writers at Work have you accomplished?
Writers at Work, I think we did 6 or 7.
Okay.
And then right now we've got, there's, I think 2 of Out of the Marvelous are complete. And then I shot one the third one with my buddy Barbara Siegel Carlson, and I just need to write the script for that and then turn it over to the folks at the studio and have them edit it all together. It's a little tricky though, because you need students to do the editing and all of that, and sometimes our population of students has dwindled a little bit during the pandemic and stuff. So they've gone off to other schools. So when students like come back from Emerson, then we can have the chance to get the editing done. So
okay. So how often do the shows air? The writers at work. I mean, I understand that you're in a little bit of a slowdown mode right at the moment.
I think they go into a general circulation on Massasoit TV, and they're also, or they should be available on the website, on Massasoit TV's website. So, and I think they're just up there, so you can go and look at them. Yeah.
All right. So tonight, the poems that you'll be reading are there any from the collection you're working on?
There are none from the collection that I'm working on, because I'm also sort of in the process of kind of taking them apart a little bit, and sort of tinkering with them, and I've kind of set that aside for the time being. So I went to the poems that I've been fortunate enough to have published recently, or poems that I really feel the strongest about, outside the collection of the chapbook. So they're sort of standalone poems.
Okay, very good. Well, we certainly look forward to hearing you read this evening. And I know that the audience no doubt enjoyed your other side as the drummer in Electric Standard tonight.
I hope
so. But I think they're going to enjoy hearing you read your work as well.
Well, thank you, John. I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. Well, this first poem I'd like to read, I took from an experience I had walking through the parking lot of my local supermarket, and I call this Upon Entry. Upon entry. On a gray afternoon in Bone Raw November, yards from the automatic door of the supermarket, a young mother, thin, sharp, coordinated, throws her head back, eyeing her skipping daughter, and says, "Daddy hates it when you make up words." Slapping the flat sole of sneaker against tarmac, the girl babbles another easy phrase of rhythmic nonsense, smiling at the pleasure of sound, her voice bouncing over A's and E's like joyful tumbles inside an inflatable castle. The mother stops, faces the child, and with final politeness says, "Daddy hates it." Disenchanted, the girl drops chin to chest, shoulders round and fold inward like a pill bug curling against harm. In silence, mother, daughter, and phantom father pass through into the land of sugar and fat. And just like that, another poet killed upon entry. This next poem is a poem called Getting Outside, and as I was saying to John a minute ago, a lot of my poems deal with hope and the need to hang on and get through the tough periods, and this is very much one of those poems. Getting outside. It's impossible to look at a field of trees and find stillness. Air rustles drive leaves or thrusts a bough along a length of trunk. Holding the forest canopy in view, movement finds its way to you in the distant sway of limbs separating to reveal glimpses of bright cloudy sky. It's easier to watch than it is to forget. When the blues hit, open all doors and windows in your house. Listen for the breeze and let it invite you where a garden needs weeding or birds need counting. Name the birds you count. Learn a sparrow from a chickadee, from a woodpecker. Relax the eye along the landscape until they show themselves in quick hops and darting pecks. Take in what is in front of you, careful not to miss what needs to be seen. Accomplish small tasks that provide weird worth. The least amount of action can flatten the greatest heap of anxiety. Where the world is broken is where the sparrow endures. So from a poem about hanging on, we're going to go to a poem literally about hanging on, and this is based on an experience I unhappily had last year, where I noticed that it became more of a struggle for me to get out of my car. And it became more of a struggle for me to climb up the stairs at the end of the night when my wife and I were finished watching television. And I came to a sad realization. And I wrote about it here in this poem called Banisters. Banisters. Banisters were things to slide down or touch lightly to make them feel less alone as you climbed up to somewhere else. Now, legs lift heavier, thighs ache, and a flooded knee forces a tighter grip. The newel post knows full weight bearing down through the hand is a new cathedral brace. As I reach the top tread to regain my balance before the next step, it's the voice of Bukowski I hear in strange welcome. You're getting old, old boy. Age is never marked by time, but by what steadies us. So, feel-good poem about aging. And here is a poem. John was asking me, themes and things that I focus on in my poetry when I write. And one of the things that's very important to me is, and the older I got, I've realized how important it is finding your own treehouse club, finding that group of people that you can really relate to. And it doesn't matter when you find them. You can find them early in your life, you can find them later in your life, but what matters is that you find them because they will give you everything. And so this is a poem about that. And I would like to dedicate this poem tonight to my two bandmates and pals, Seth and Drew. So this is for you. This is called Belong. The swing set in the backyard had room for 5 kids, but most days I swung alone. From that swing, I watched kid-full cars drive off to beachside amusement parks or downtown department stores, then kicked the air, pumped my legs, traced the patch of dirt to the high pine boughs along the arc of not being asked. Swinging was a way of blowing aside abandonment, a release from being picked last or finding yourself at a joke's butt end. Then that summer, our neighbors' grandkids visited for a week. We played games without captains or blame across fenceless backyards. At lunchtime, I went away, taught earlier that a place at the table appeared only when absence needed a warm body. From my swing, I watched 7 grandchildren around a checkered picnic table feast on hot dogs, hamburgers, potato chips. They ate and waved. I kicked against all of it, starting over. When the grandson my age ran to me, waving, smiling, wanting to know why I was over here all alone because a plate of food waited for me with them, acceptance lifted me to the ground. The taste of belonging lingers on my tongue. This next poem, that was kind of a somber poem. Now this is a lighter poem. I mentioned in the interview with John, I am a huge admirer of Gary Snyder, and 2 or 3 times a year I always go back and I read the poems he translated from the Chinese poet Cold Mountain, whose name I believe is Han Shan. And I am so delighted by these poems that I couldn't help but have that influence spill over, and one day I found myself writing my own kind of Cold Mountain poem, and this is one I like to call My Own Private Cold Mountain. My own private cold mountain. I linger here off the marshes south of a shrinking river, watching a Cooper's hawk on power lines, red squirrels scramble up broken pines, my neighbor walking his small dog. On the trails behind my home, I hear the rush of air pushed by cars on the highway, songs of robins in the spring, call of barn owls in the deep night. Some days I worry that I'm only good enough for making money. Other days, I forget that and keep alert for bald eagles. We have them along the river marsh. Their numbers are growing, and they don't care about your bank account. Now, these next two poems I'd like to read. I'm fortunate enough to have a wife whose greatest goal in life is to travel. And she loves to travel. She loves to plan for it. And it's just been a delight that she's brought that into my life. And recently, we took a trip down to South America where we visited Peru and the Galapagos Islands. And we reached a lifelong goal of my wife, and that was to go up to the top of Machu Picchu. And I knew Machu Picchu was going to be an intense experience, and but when you write poetry, you think, I got to remember what the experience was like and write it down and get it all together. But when I was standing up at the top of Machu Picchu, I just said, there's no way I'm going to be able to get all this down into a poem. What was I thinking? This is beyond me. But it bothered me that I couldn't do it. So what I figured I would do was just write a poem about not being able to write a poem about Machu Picchu. And so this is called Lines from Machu Picchu. You need to risk being bowled over by llamas descending stone stairs to feel the strangeness of what surrounds you. Heights of searing depth, dancing stones, even-angled terraces, measured courtyards, solstice alignments redrawn atop mountain trails, things not purchased. Direction spins with ease. You can't shake the certainty that if you blew away the clouds and folded back the mountains, you would see the sun rising over the Pacific. All experience soaked up that cloud-drenched morning evaporates in the burn-off. It's laughable to think an inch of this landscape will sink to blood knowledge. Who dares to experience? It's as if, look, along the precipice walks a young mother nursing her infant son. Up here, they do it every day. And everything in that poem was true. I was almost trampled by a llama, and I did, in fact, see a young mother very casually walk by me right along the precipice, nursing a son like she was strolling in her backyard, and that has not left me. So far, I've gotten two poems from this experience of traveling down to Lima. I haven't written anything on the Galapagos yet, but that's going to take a little while. So this is a poem I wrote about our excursions through Lima, and this is called How Lima Was. How Lima Was. Perfume city of clear divides, life moving around heavy traffic, El Melcon hugging the sharp cliff, a paradise of mist and vistas. Here the bronze poet looks west over the ocean, his mind full of foxes at midnight. Under his nose, leash bulldogs pull owners to El Parque del Amor. In color-mad, artful Barranco, the Virgin Mary stands as a mountain, feminine, deep-rooted rock, while her son's feet remain nailed fast to ornamental wood. In profitable Miraflores, the rich live in bamboo mansions, dodging earthquakes that stir the poor like flour in a bowl. We visit one of these, old, aromatic, out of time. The matron rents rooms for weddings, entertains tourists for lunch. She was perfumed too, drinking little, her shoes hovering above shaky ground. Okay. So I've got a few more poems here. This next one, this was a poem during the pandemic at Massasoit. We couldn't have the commencement celebration. So to make up for that, the TV studio put a call out to everyone who worked at Massasoit to write or to make little videos of congratulation messages to the graduating students. And I said, I'm going to write a poem to them. And I did, but the only trouble was I didn't finish it in time, which is the story of my life. So I like to read this one ever since. I was very fortunate enough to have this poem published by the good people at Wilderness House Literary Review up in Littleton, Mass. And so this is a poem to all of my students, present and graduating. And this is called A Guide to Happiness from an Unqualified Poet. To be happy in life, don't look too deeply into the darkness. The nothing that you will find there will cause you to fill it with your own dark thoughts. Take comfort in the fact that while life's tragedies are vast, life's comedies outnumber them 50 to 1, but can be tiny and sometimes slip past the noticing. To be happy in this life, you need tasty things to eat. You need beautiful things to look at. You need interesting things to read. And you need sensational things to listen to. But above all, you need to have something to look forward to, even if it's getting an ice cream cone with a friend. And speaking of friends, make them. Find people who share your interests and spend as much time with them as time allows. Find the people who don't share your interests and enjoy the arguing, because the arguments can show you wisdom. Find the people with empathy and let that be the bond between you. Hold no one as an enemy. If you find someone you cannot, in all good faith, tolerate, simply wish them well and go back to cultivating your garden. Never hesitate to tell someone what you believe. Most will appreciate your clarity, and if they dislike it or reject you, that's on them. If you provide an unpleasant someone room in your head, be sure to charge them rent. To be happy in life, you need time to be alone, to look at the world around you, look deeply and for a good long time, and then ask, I wonder what comes next. So that is to my students. And then I have one more poem here, which was also, I was fortunate enough to have published in Wilderness House, the same issue that published the previous poem. And this is based on a lot, well, I don't want to say a lot, but there were quite a few of my poems for a while there that I just got from staring out the back window and looking at my yard. I live near a river, and we've got just a great collection of birds and wildlife, and it's just fascinating to just start to look, and then the more you look, the more you see. And we have this great Cooper's hawk that flies around the neighborhood. And one day it landed on our back deck, which it had never done before. And I looked out the window, and there it was. And it was sort of hanging out there for a minute. And then that drew me in. And then what happened for the next 20 minutes was this entire opera that took place in my backyard. And I got it all down in this poem that I call Worry Hour. Worry Hour. The back deck was her for a moment's patrol as she landed light, feet splayed across the rail. She was proud and sharp, forceful enough to disturb peripheral vision. Plump, round breast of blurred brown, beige and peach, soothing tones beneath supernova eyes and deathlock beak. All violence without being violent. Head rotating round and again round, noticing everything we do not. Feathers hid secret sense, tuning to what we cannot hear, homing in towards the heartbeat vibrations of her noon meal. Or was it the skittish throb of her watchers? Flitting where she did not look, scrub jays alight on top branches of tall sumac, jabbing beaks as if pecking at stray bugs, alert with worry as Huntress heaves herself from fence to tall chairback, sitting near the tree line, the pivoting head narrowing its rotation like a well-tuned radar. Jays followed, settling on the branches directly above, open surveillance, a grim safeguard for the hidden home that brought them into defensive frenzy. Time tightened. Hawk wings flared and flapped, raising her to the spiked top of a snapped pine, then folded calmly, blending her like a clump of dead leaves that refuse to fall. Natural tension of a natural course. Now, at some undiscovered signal, jays take to air, swooping and swirling, chasing each other like bored squirrels. They dive and lift rapidly, agitating the mid-level canopy just enough to shake the air and disrupt listening. The fury of false play continues until out of dappled wood she came flying low like some ancient reptile of air, banked left, strafed the grass, accelerating as she crossed the street and vanished. The space where the scrub jay swarmed held only thin pines, leafy ash, overgrown vines. A mother's tragedy is another's victory. What's left is a bearable harshness revealing more of an absent God than empty stomachs. Thank you very much.
Welcome to For the Love of Words. My name is Priscilla Almquist Olsen, and today is October 19th, 2023. And it gives me a great deal of pleasure to welcome Electric Standard, an unusual name with an unusually talented group of musicians. So we have the founder and originator, is that correct, Mark Walsh?
It's actually Drew and I, we co-founded the band.
Co-founders.
Yep.
So Drew Dunphy, welcome.
Thank you so much.
Mark Walsh, welcome.
Thank you.
And of course we have Seth Peterson. And you guys, how did you get together? Mark, you want to tell me how you and Drew founded this band?
Sure. So Drew and I worked together a couple towns over at Brockton at Massasoit Community College. And as we were getting to know each other, we both knew that we played. And we had just had these conversations like, well, wouldn't it be nice to sort of get together and do that, or get together and do this? And then, if I remember correctly, you bought a guitar. You bought that. Mm-hmm. You bought the telly, and then you were like, okay, I really want to play. So you we came over, we did some stuff, and then Drew said, I know a bass player, and maybe we can bring him down. Yeah, and I think I know a guy, and I think I had met Seth at your house prior to that. Yeah. And so we just, got together over at my house and rehearsed, and we said this was really fun. We're all on the same wavelength, and it just grew from there.
Well, it takes some time, doesn't it, for you to meld together, to get used to each other so that you're playing in a unified way?
Yes, very much. I would think that, we started off playing covers, and then you had the idea, I want to start writing my own material.
Yeah, and it's nice, actually, all three of us write both music and lyrics, so a number of the songs we've recorded are either by one of the three of us or a combination of us. Right. And it's a really collaborative process. I mean, anytime any of us brings a song to rehearsal, it kind of morphs when the other members kind of chip in their parts and things like that. So I think that's one thing I really like about the band. We're really good at kind of listening to each other, and we really want to collaborate. We really have a lot of fun. If anything, it's a challenge in rehearsal to stop goofing off and telling jokes and get down to practicing. Right.
And so how did you become the soloist, Drew?
That's interesting. Yeah, I've played guitar for a long time, but I've never really been the sole guitar player in a band ever. This is the first one. Yeah.
Well, this is news.
So it was a stepping out a little bit.
Yeah, he was definitely ready.
It's been an evolutionary process of becoming comfortable. Yeah. I think initially my attitude was, don't give me any guitar solos, don't give me anything. But no, it feels comfortable. I mean, I feel like it's a band where the rhythm section is really prominent. I kind of feel like Mark and Seth are in some ways the lead instruments of the band. So that's kind of nice. I really don't feel like I'm carrying too much of the load at all.
It worked.
It did. Right.
It's all on you, Seth. That's the reality.
All English teachers.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
Well, I was an English teacher before I became a lawyer, but I was 10 years teaching English, drama, but I did a creative writing course.
Nice.
And
Careful,
so
you end up in our band.
Right.
We only allow English teachers, by the way. So.
Oh, you only allow
That's the
English.
criteria.
The only criteria. Musical talent is secondary.
No.
So how did you get involved in music? How did you transition from words to music? And actually, music is it's words in its own way, isn't it?
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah.
Because every note has a different sound and meaning and mood.
Very much. Yeah,
for me, it really was, as you said, through words. I have to admit, as a teen who was obsessed with music, lyrics were my window in. I paid great attention to lyrics. I'd sit for days with vinyl records playing, reading the lyrics to everything, and that's what made me want to write and be part of that. And honestly, in the early days, the music part was secondary. It's like, well, if I'm gonna write lyrics, I gotta be in a band. So I better learn something. Let me pick up a bass.
Yeah, worked out.
So for me, it was definitely the gateway through words, and then I met good musicians who made me feel a lot better about music as its own language.
Right. So now, Seth, you knew Drew.
Yeah.
And Drew, where did you meet Seth?
So I met Seth through my brother. So for a short time, not that short actually, Seth and I and our respective brothers were all in a kind of a pickup bluegrass band called the Somerville Billies. And at the time, the three of them were living in the Boston area. I was living in New York. First time I met Seth was the evening of our first performance. I took the Greyhound up to Boston. I took the T to Seth's apartment. I shook hands with him and his brother. We ran through the songs. We got in the car. We drove to the bar. We played the set. And it's a beautiful story, and it's been a tremendous friendship and musical partnership ever since. I knew the minute I met you guys, I just knew. I was like, we are so simpatico. We have the same. And, there's nothing like trial by fire. I kind of think that was kind of the beauty of that band. It's like we barely knew the material, barely knew each other. But it was so much fun. So, I've always been, since then, I've been kind of looking for something we could do together. So when I met Mark, it kind of felt like the nice opportunity. Right.
So, what are your? If somebody were to get in touch with you, would they be able to sign you up for a gig at a party, at an anniversary party, a birthday party?
Oh, sure. Yeah. We played all kinds of things in all kinds of places. We're very self-sufficient.
Yep.
And I mean, tonight we played our own material. We, as Mark mentioned, we kind of started as a cover band. Right. Partly out of necessity because we didn't really have our own material and we just wanted to be playing and doing shows. That's been nice too, because if we do a show where there's a hope that we'll play a bunch of covers, we know a bunch of recognizable songs or crowd pleasers, and it'll be a nice kind of mix of those things. So it's nice because it's a very flexible kind of format. Every now and then we'll do a show where we just play acoustic instruments. Mark plays a cajon, a big hand drum. Yeah. So that's another thing that's great about the band, a lot of flexibility.
That is true. We can be like we were tonight. We can be, fairly heavy duty, amplified, electric, and then we can pare it all the way down to very, very quiet acoustic, Latin percussion, and it still works, and we still have a lot of fun.
But there's not a separate website for acoustic.
No, there's not. There's not acoustic. Electric Standard covers it all.
That is a slight problem with the name, but we'll work that out somehow.
Right.
So you're working full time, all three of you.
Yep.
And where do you fit the time to get together, or are you so much in tune with each other that you don't need to practice?
We need practice.
Oh yeah.
And we have very generous, caring families and partners who let us free when we need to.
Right.
Despite the busyness of life, and it does get very, very busy. As you all know.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, it is really hard to fit it in, but we have a very wise friend who said, when you feel too tired to play music or go out to a show, that's when you need it the most, because that's when it's going to feed you with the energy. Right. And I definitely always feel like, there's nights when I'm driving to rehearsal and I just feel like, a wet dish rag. Right. But driving home, I feel much better. I feel much more energized, much more alive. My mind's sparking, and it's just, it's tough, but it's so worth making the time for.
I would like to see us keep making original music, and one of the things that we have been doing on when we make records or when we go into record, or sometimes when we perform, is that we bring in friends to play with us or sing with us. Our dear friend, for example, Angelina, has been singing with us recently, and she's just been blowing the doors off every single hall we're in. So to do things with vocalists, or maybe to get other players up. We've got a couple of songs we still need to record, and we played one tonight, Stolen Signs. So hopefully we can get together and do that. But that's as far as I go. I don't know where you.
I would just have world domination. Any band. That's really what we're about. I just think at this stage of life, let's just say, and we fully recognize we're not going to be the Rolling Stones, and that's okay. I just feel like sharing music with people is what really drives me. So to me, that's Good evening, everybody. We're Electric Standard. We're so happy to be with you tonight. And the first song we're going to play is a song that was written by our bass player, Mr. Seth Peterson, and the song is called Half of Half.
Well, I don't need you to remind me of all the things I haven't got. 'Cause half of what I've got left sure as hell isn't a lot. And it ain't what it was, and it'll never be what it's not. Oh, if you're always on the wrong side of a gun, you'll never get a shot. I don't need you to remind me of how I lost when we fought. 'Cause half of what the cat dragged in sure as sugar ain't a lot. And it ain't what you've become, and I'm still what you forgot. Oh, we haunt those same city sidewalks, but you're the ghost rider of this plot. He was so lonely, so eager for action, he was busting at the seams. And so we moved to the strip and fell in love with dancing girls and truckers' dreams. No one ever told him that in the great big dirty city, well, everything is smaller than it seems. A cigarette, leaving lipstick on the filter, making half of what the club brings in. Ain't made her rich, but it hasn't killed her. And she thinks her legs are gone, but she thinks they're all she's got. Oh, between the pills and the baby screaming, anything seems worth a shot. When she hears those babies screaming, anything seems worth.
So this next song we're going to play is a relatively new one for us. And what's the song about? It's kind of about a lot of different things. The song is called Stolen Signs, and as I was writing it, I just tried to think about what are the different possible meanings of that. There's the literal meaning of stealing a sign, which is in the song. There's baseball, where you steal signs, particularly this time of year. No criticism of anybody currently playing. And And then there's signs from the universe. And that got me thinking about what happens if those signs were to get stolen. So this is a relatively new song, and it's called Stolen Signs.
Riding around underground late one night with a car full of lost souls staring at the floor. Well, a sign overhead says you best beware, there's danger all around. I pulled it out of the slot and took it with me out the door. Stolen signs, I've got my souvenir of deepest, darkest fear. The axe about to fall. Stolen signs, you're coming home with me. Nobody needs to read the writing on the wall. Well, all alone at the watering hole, went across the room. Oh, lovely, making eyes in my direction. But when I looked up from my loving cup, I had peaked too soon. Oh, another man receiving her affection. Stolen signs, oh, may the best man win. So long as it's not him, it must be me. Stolen signs, well, the walls are closing in. Oh, another lonely night of empty reverie. You want a world where everything is plain as day. The people mean just what they say, and there's no need to be afraid. But ambiguity's the rule, and the truth can be so cruel. Well, everyone's uncertain, each of us a fool. Boy, well, I went to Sunday school, and the preacher's wife told us the end is coming soon. You better watch the skies, there's gonna be a sign. Oh, and if you miss it, boy, you're headed for your doom. Now, I've lived 19,000 days, and I've kept a watchful gaze, and I ain't seen a single hint to tell me what's to come. Has it been directed? Was it intercepted? Has it been deflected or protected or sent back where it come from? Stolen signs, I think communications jammed between the promised land and this man's ear. Stolen signs, oh, won't someone raise a hand if you've got knowledge that the end is coming soon. So, like many bands over the last couple of years, we had to face the challenges
of the pandemic and not being able to play together in person or write together in person. So we actually did a bunch of writing by alternative means, and the song we're going to play now was written by myself and by Seth with some help from Mark Walsh, our drummer. And Seth and I basically sent each other voice memos and lyrics by phone, and eventually pieced together this little song, which is kind of about looking back on the past, perhaps with some regret, and trying perhaps not to feel quite so much of that regret. So appropriately, this song is called Crying Over Youth. It was winter in New England. I held you through the storm, and you walked into March winds with new ways to stay warm. I had hoped that frozen sky might hold us forever. Now I'm left with an apology that I thought was so clever. If you wait till the moment is right, you might wait for the rest of your life. And when time is done clawing at your soul, your secret dies untold. You remember the slow dance in the old high school gym when I hung by the heater while you clung on to him. I took a walk home in old shoes I'd already grown out of. Now it's too late to thank you for this lesson about love. If you wait till the right time and place, well, opportunity might slip away. And when you're done crying over youth, well, you know the truth. Oh, there are days when your heart beats courageous and bold. There are times when your love, it won't ever grow old. But when time has passed and the past hangs on, oh, you can cling to what's left, or you can just be gone. Oh, if you wait for the right time and place, opportunity might slip away. And when at last you leap at the chance, Lady Luck has left the dance. I'll be wrapped up in sadness for a long, long while. And this once treasured memories, they're just tossed on the pile. Tattered, torn down, tainted by hurt. So I hide them away and wonder what they were worth. If you wait till the moment is right, well, you might wait for the rest of your life. Whoa, and when you go out looking for proof, you're just crying over you. You're just crying over you.
last note all the way in. So once again, the name of our band is Electric Standard. Thanks for tuning in to watch us. We really appreciate it. And this song we're going to play now is the last song off of the first album we recorded. We conveniently released it right before the pandemic began. It was perfect timing on our part. 1 week, I believe, before. But hey, you can't predict the future. But anyway, we're happy with how it came out, and who knows, maybe you'll go look us up somewhere. This song is, what I'll say about it is it's kind of a grown-up song. No, we wouldn't have written this one when we were in our 20s. I'm surprised we even wrote it now. This song is called That's Not What I Had in Mind. And working hard on a reinvention, frustrated, bound and blind to what might bring me peace of mind. I chase every cheap distraction down every road of dissatisfaction. Sometimes you hold to each demand instead of what you got in hand. Steps are wrong, they lead back to where you've been all along, and that's not what I had in mind, but now I see it suits me fine. Next day I was caught between my destination and the places I'd seen, seeking direction, scared to look down, a seat shaking on solid ground. Rough, many steps are wrong, they lead back to where you've been all along, and that's not what I had in mind, but now I see it suits me fine. Time to go, to rethink what I think I know. Let it be so, let it be so, let it be, let it be, let it be so. One day I'll be home at last, a compilation from a checkered past, a recognition all it bears. All along I was halfway there. Rough, many steps are wrong, they lead back to where you've been all along, and that's not what I